Welcome to Psychic Holistic Spotlight of Rhode Island. I'm Kathy Costa, your host for today. We also have Ken Demers and Bill Hannon co-hosting today. And we have a new guest on tonight. Her name is Alicia Mastrangelo.
Yes,
okay,
perfect.
Good. Yeah, I'm glad I pronounced that right. I wasn't really sure. So she does a mix of a couple of things. So after a while, that's what typically happens. She's a Reiki master teacher. She makes jewelry, mostly bracelets, I believe. She does do some artist work, and she does read cards for people. So we're going to just talk with her a little bit to see how things get started and where she is right now, though. So was that one thing that you started with first?
I definitely started with Reiki first. I'm a pretty big believer that Reiki is kind of a doorway into other things. And I started with Reiki probably in about 2014, 2015, and became a master teacher in 2016. And then that was kind of the door that flung open to all the other stuff.
Okay. Yeah. Now, do you give sessions or do you teach it as well?
Both. So I am a master teacher, so I do teach traditional Usui Reiki, all levels, so level 1, 2, and master teacher. Okay. And I do distance Reiki sessions for folks. I actually no longer do in-person, so I do distance these days.
Right. You no longer do what?
In-person Reiki sessions.
You don't?
No, not anymore. I do distance only.
Now, is there a reason for that, or just kind of fell that way?
It sort of developed that way when the world went into lockdown a few years ago. I began doing a whole lot of inner work, really developing my own intuition, honing my skills as a practitioner, and I just started opening myself up, and I started receiving so much more information during folks' sessions that I need to be able to take notes now. Yeah. And there's no way I could give them all of that feedback in an in-person session anymore. So I feel like I can serve my clients far better by being able to give them something in writing once their session's over.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I do get some information too when I give sessions.
Yeah. Sometimes it's a small novel.
Yeah, I understand that well.
Yeah.
Isn't that why God created tape recorders?
Yeah, we could do that. But if I'm doing an in-person session, my goal is to have the person really be relaxed and kind of check out of life and be undisturbed. And so I don't want to talk through their session. So by doing a distance session, they're able to relax in their own space, as comfortable as they so choose. And then I'm able to take notes and then send them an email with all of their messages to refer back to.
So you have people that you do distance healing on. Do they fall asleep on you, and how would you know that?
Yeah, so it's pretty common, and even in in-person sessions, I always said that the biggest compliment I could ever get if somebody starts snoring on my table. Right. So really, them falling asleep is perfect because we are very receptive when we're sleeping. And so I can actually usually feel a change in their energy, and I'm usually not surprised when they tell me later on that they fell asleep during their session.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So did that develop into the card reading in time?
Yep, card reading was next.
Okay.
So I'm actually an oracle card reader.
Okay.
So as much as I adore tarot and the history of tarot and all of that, tarot is a little too structured for me as a reader. I find that it sort of impedes my own intuition a little bit, trying to remember what certain cards mean. And one day, I just got a prompting from Spirit that said, hey, you're going to start doing card readings. And I said, all right, I guess we're going to do that. So I was prompted to get a very particular deck. And as soon as I got that deck and I opened it and I held it, I knew this is the deck that I'm supposed to use when I do readings.
Now, when you pick out a card, whatever that card would be, what does that card mean to you, and how do you know what it means if you don't have a memory system of what the card means?
So oracle cards are very open and free form, and so for me, using the card is really more of a visual for the client to look at, and it's a prompt for me, and so it kind of flings open the door for Spirit to give me whatever message the person needs to receive.
Do you consider yourself a medium?
I don't. I have done mediumship in the past, but that is not a skill that I proclaim to have on the regular. So I don't know if that's something that will develop over time, but I definitely do not market myself as a medium.
Well, what do you call what you do then? That sounds like mediumship to me, but I
It's
don't.
more the psychic work though, because it's not
Yeah.
necessarily like,
More
bringing in
psychic
the
stuff.
spirit though,
Okay.
bringing in the spirit
Yeah.
themselves, so.
Right, and so to me, mediumship is more speaking with the folks that have transitioned back to spirit.
Yeah.
I don't love the word psychic just because there's a lot of stigma that goes along with that. So usually I just lean towards intuitive. I'm very intuitive, but if I had to pick one, yes, I would say more psychic. So I do a lot of intuitive work, whether it's the healing work, readings,
Okay.
even
Now,
creations.
let's switch gears just for a second. I'm
Sure.
curious about something. You're wearing bracelets that you've made,
Yes.
and you sell your bracelets.
I do.
When you're creating a bracelet and you're involved in healing, are you choosing particular stones for a particular reason? And are you putting healing energy into those stones?
Yes. Short answer is yes to both of those questions. So that's how I came to actually begin creating jewelry. So as a Reiki practitioner, we learn each of the chakras is associated to different things, including crystals. And so that's how I was kind of prompted to start creating jewelry as another healing option for
But
folks.
the crystals that, well, as far as I can't see them that well, but I don't see that those crystals are particularly associated with a chakra.
So all of these right here are fluorite. They're purple fluorite. So they're variations of the coloration of purple fluorite. And purple fluorite is for intuition, which is the third eye chakra. So I'm actually wearing this on my left hand because that's my receiving side. And then this one I put together for communication. And so
What is that one?
this has blue lace agate, blue kyanite, rose quartz, and chrysocolla. So some of these aren't chakra specific, but each crystal has its own healing properties.
Sure, and blue associated also with the expression, the
Yeah,
voice.
so throat chakra,
Right.
rose quartz is heart chakra, so kind of speaking from the heart. So my right side is my sending side, so I wanted to make sure I was doing a good job communicating here tonight, so that's what I created this for. And yes, everything that I create, I put Reiki healing energy into each piece.
Did you create this specifically for tonight? Is that what I heard you say? Or?
No, I created these specifically for myself. So most likely you'll see me wearing these same things when I'm out doing readings, when I'm teaching classes, sometimes even when I'm doing vendor events and I
Only
get to
two.
talk to people.
Only two, though.
That's what I feel called to wear, yes. So some people will have armfuls of bracelets. That doesn't appeal to me. So I just go with whatever I'm drawn to on any particular day.
Now, what I like to do is if somebody wants to find you, how do they find you?
So my email is alicia.mastrangelo@gmail.com, or they can call or text me at 401-323-7199.
You said that a little fast for people to understand.
Yes.
Again, please.
Sure. So the email is my first name and last name, so it's alicia.mastrangelo@gmail.com. And then I'm a Rhode Islander, so my phone number is 401-323-7199.
Better.
Thank you.
We'll do that near the end of the show in case somebody wants to get a pencil and
Sure.
write it down.
Yes.
Interesting last name,
Yes, that's my married last name. So
Mastrangelo.
Mastrangelo.
Angelo.
Yes, yes. It's a mouthful. It looks very intimidating, but it's not that. It's not that terrible.
No, it's a strong
Depends if you
name.
know how to spell or not.
Yeah. It's people don't forget it. That's for sure.
So I believe you do paintings as well?
I do. I've recently, probably about a year or so ago, I started dabbling in art.
Okay.
And I do a variety of things. So I typically work with acrylic paint. Sometimes I do actual paintings, like on a canvas.
Okay.
But I also paint other things like bookmarks, magnets. So kind of whatever I'm inspired to create. For me, it's just another outlet to kind of tap into my intuition, get into a meditative state, and really just it's a fabulous outlet for me personally. So I've started dabbling with a bunch of that. I actually started originally with the art, doing light language art. So
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
yes, it's been interesting. I started being asked to channel light language and channel it into writing. And
What is light language?
yes, I know, the million-dollar question. So light language is kind of a cosmic language that supersedes kind of words, and it's really meant to be felt. And so when people channel light language, some of them channel verbally, some might sing, some might sign. I get the messages and I'm guided to write them down. And so it's a bunch of different signs and symbols that look nothing like the English alphabet.
It's all vibration.
And it's all vibration. And so unlike translating, say, English to Korean, when you look at light language, you're just supposed to feel it. Like, how does it make you feel? What kind of images pop into your head when you look at it? What's the message for you? And so once I kind of embraced that I now am a channel for light language, I was guided to combine that with some form of painting.
Okay.
So yeah, it's been interesting.
Now, when you do that, the light language, when you write that down, though, do you, I know some people do things differently. Now, do you cover that with the paint, though, or do you just keep it, though, with the words? Or the symbols?
So usually the painting is in the background,
Oh,
and then
okay.
the light language is put on top of that.
Oh,
so
okay,
the
okay.
light language is not hidden
Okay, so
at
it's
all.
visible. Okay.
It is visible. yeah.
Okay. Now, was that something the spirit told you to do, or you just felt that was the right thing to do?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
So a lot of what I do has been guided by spirit, you know, and I've committed to myself that I'm just going to keep saying yes. And
Yeah.
just keep doing things. And
If you
trying
say no, it's
things.
just going to take you longer to get there.
Yeah, if I say no, they just pester me until I say yes
Yeah.
anyway. So yeah, it was very much like, okay, just grab a notebook and sit down and just write this stuff. I'm like, all right.
What type of information comes through?
It's a lot of different types of symbols, and it's sort of hard to explain without actually seeing it, but it doesn't look anything like the English alphabet or any other language alphabet. So some of them are very rounded, some of them are very squared.
But what type of information is there?
It's whatever message the receiver gets, which I know sounds very open-ended, but sometimes the message is not for me. My job is to write it down and to share it, and then everybody that looks at it is going to receive the feelings and the message meant for them when they look at that. So,
But if somebody looks at a bunch of symbols, generally speaking, I would think that they wouldn't mean anything to anybody.
and that's where the challenge can come in for folks, right? We're not working in the logic brain here. We want to work in the heart chakra and feeling. How does it make you feel? What kind of sensations do you get? Do you get images in your mind's eye? Versus trying to translate it into a message like Morse code.
Right. So the right side of the brain is and Ken, I'm sure you've been told things in the past that probably didn't mean anything to the person who said it to you, but struck you to the core, such a Microsoft or some okay? So this is exactly what she's trying to share with us. So I think it's great the way that you're.
Have you had to guide people though when they got the message from the light language? Like to guide them like to what it means for them?
Yeah, it's a difficult thing for people to kind of turn off logic sometimes, especially I feel like in this world today. And so I just really encourage them to try to not overthink it, to try to not let logic into play. Just how do you feel? What pictures do you see in your mind's eye? And if you don't see any or feel anything, that's okay too.
Yeah.
That message at that particular time is not for them, and that's okay.
Yeah. I know sometimes in the messages that I've given, though, when I read cards or do mediumship, that like sometimes the people just want to know that they're loved.
Oh, for sure.
You know, and sometimes it's like they just kind of look at me. I'm like, well, sometimes it really is just that simple.
Right.
You
Right.
know, it's like, yeah, it's like your grandmother's coming through. She actually loved you.
Right.
You know, sometimes that's all we need to hear.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I find kind of with all of the facets of what I do, people really just need some validation. Right?
Yeah.
So most of the time, I'm not really giving them any huge revelation. I'm validating the things that they just want somebody to validate
Yeah.
for them.
So the feeling of crazy, though, isn't so bad.
Right, exactly, exactly. They're not imagining it, it's actually real.
Yeah. Gonna so many times like, you're really not crazy, and they'll just
Yeah.
kind of look at me. I'm like, I'm seriously. It's like, you're really not crazy.
Yeah.
So when you do work in the, what we refer to it as light language, as well as, light colors. And do you actually sense the colors sometimes in your presence, such as a purple or a hue of some color?
Yeah, so typically when I'm inspired to write it down, they usually tell me what color to use too. So you have, I have the visual, but
Yeah.
I'll also just kind of be presented with a color in my mind's eye as well. But a lot of times, especially when I'm doing the art, every piece of that piece of art has been intuitively guided. So what paint colors to use, what shapes to use, how big it is, what color to use for the light language, et cetera, and kind of what shape to put that in. Is it just a strip? Is it a circle? And so I just kind of roll with whatever that is.
Right.
Now, did you take classes to learn the light language, or just kind of started, it just came to you?
No, it just, one day it was like, oh, here's what you're doing now. It's like, oh, I don't know what this is, but all right.
Just kind of go with the roll with the punches.
Yeah.
Now, if you take a message and you write it down, and you're conferring with somebody that also does this language, can they pick up what you've written and read it and make sense to them?
Yeah, so it's, again, it's not really reading it, it's just feeling it. So,
Are they capable of putting the same feeling that you had in when they look at it?
possibly. It really depends. So it is really, so I could show the same message to 15 different people, and more likely than not, they're each going to experience something different from that. So it's going to be whatever fits for their soul at the time when they see it.
So it's not something that's designed for explicit information, like for heritage to pass on to people?
In my experience, the stuff that I channel, no. It's just, I'm here to deliver a message, and people are to receive that message at whatever level their soul is ready to hear it. And sometimes their soul's not ready to hear it at all, and it won't mean anything to them.
Now, these symbols that you're looking at, I watch TV show Ancient Aliens, and they talk about symbols being on the sides of certain spaceships that were out in England one time. Would those be the same symbols?
It's possible. I also am a fan of Ancient Aliens, so I know what you're talking about. It's entirely possible. So you could look at my light language, and it might resemble something that you've seen elsewhere. Entirely possible. And then you could look at somebody else's light language, which looks completely different than mine, and that might also remind you of things that you've seen. So it's far less structured than, say, an English alphabet.
Right.
Which makes it a little more difficult for people to wrap their brain around.
But again, that's where the intuition comes in. And I'm sure a lot of times you're expressing something and somebody picks up exactly what you're saying because they're tuned in.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's kind of like when you're getting, like when you're reading your cards for people, it's like you could get like two very similar messages, but it could be interpreted differently by everybody when you're using the light language.
Sure.
It's like that. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, because a lot of times that's what happens. I get very similar things for different people, but yet it's very different for each person.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I could have the same 7-card spread for 2 people, and it's going to mean vastly different things to each person.
Yeah, so it's like that though. Yeah, for light language.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So for the painting that you do, I'm curious. So do you paint though per customer request, or just purely just what you're guided by?
I'm always open to doing custom work
Okay.
for folks, whether it's light language or jewelry or just a bookmark that they
Yeah.
would love to have painted. I'm always open to that.
Okay.
A lot of times, I'm just kind of working away with whatever I was inspired
Okay.
to do. But absolutely, one of my absolute favorite things to do is custom work because I can kind of dial into their energy just like I would during a Reiki session and kind of see
Yeah.
where might they need some support in addition to whatever else they tell me that they
Yeah.
would love some assistance with, and then I just kind of bring all that together and intuitively sit and figure out what that looks like and just roll from there.
Yeah. Yeah, so that doesn't sound like that takes very long though when you do that.
I would say that my custom stuff takes far less time.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's
it's almost
interesting.
like somebody asks me something and I just immediately start getting hits
Yeah.
for this type of crystal, this type of layout, these colors, they need this, they need that.
It's almost like you're picking up on what they want the end product to look like. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh, that's interesting.
It is interesting.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah.
I find it very fun, and I'm always honored when people ask me to support them in any way with
Yeah.
any of the things that I do.
So when somebody sits down with you and they're aware that you do jewelry, and they ask for a piece of jewelry, would you create it specifically for them?
Yes. Yes, so sometimes I would encourage them, I do have an online shop that they can look at. I do vendor events where folks can kind of peruse in person, but I absolutely would be honored to create something specific for them. And then I would infuse it with Reiki energy for them and positive intentions specifically for them.
What's the bracelet cost, by the way? I'm just curious. I don't buy a lot of bracelets.
It really depends because crystals vary in price dramatically. So some crystals, I can get for, say, 10 cents a piece, and other crystals we're looking at 60 cents a piece. And so it really just depends on...
So it's still relatively inexpensive.
I think so, but,
They add up, I don't know how many's on one of them, but 10 or 15.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
there's I use 23 beads in a typical bracelet of this size. So yeah,
So that's the average, okay.
So
That's the average,
That
yeah.
would be like 25,000 stones and stuff.
Yeah.
yeah. I don't find them to be expensive for what you get. I do put love and good vibes into everything, and
Do you get good feedback from them?
I do.
And what do people think?
People tell me that they can feel it when they open the box and they pull out the piece that I've made, that they can feel the energy that I've put into it for them, which just melts my heart every time. And so, yeah, and sometimes pieces will break, and that's usually an indication that that particular piece is kind of done doing the work for them. And so at that point, I offer them, I can restring it, I can put them into another piece for you, or you can bury them in the earth and send them back to Mother Earth where they came from, whatever they'd like to do with it.
Interesting.
Yeah, definitely is. Now, for the Reiki, I believe you've been teaching that for a while, right?
I've been a master teacher since 2016.
Okay, so that's
yeah.
a little bit. So do you find people look for you, like people find you? I know how energy works and stuff like that, but it's like sometimes it was like, we find the students, sometimes they find us. So
Yes.
do you find it more one way than the other, or it's about the same?
I would say in the beginning, I was searching. Now I am being sought out.
Okay.
So I've also been doing some of my own personal work of trying to set my vibe to attract the folks that are a good vibrational match for me and what I do. And yeah, and people just tend to find me now.
Yeah. All right, so we're got a few minutes left though, so how can people get a hold of you, though, by phone number and email?
So the phone number is 401-323-7199.
Okay.
And folks can call. I know most folks don't call these days,
Yeah.
but text is fine too. And then the email is my first name and last name. So it's alicia.mastrangelo@gmail.com.
Okay.
Now, you had also mentioned earlier that you once a month read at a bookstore or something?
There's
gift shop?
a small gift shop in Warwick. So once a month, I offer card readings there at the gift shop as well.
And what is that? Where is that?
It's on West Shore Road. And are we allowed to share?
Yeah, they would have contacted you for that though, just because of the nature of the show.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if folks get in touch with me, I'm happy to share the dates that I'm there. I'm at that gift shop once a month, offering in person. Card readings I also offer by email or over Zoom, so we can see each other. So folks don't have to be local to Rhode Island. They don't even have to be in the same state.
Right.
Yeah,
Or
that's a
country.
nice-
I
yeah.
have some folks that aren't even in the country.
That's
so.
a nice convenience these days,
Yes,
though.
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
We tend to think small in Rhode Island.
Well,
Yes,
it's a small
well,
state.
not a native Rhode Islander, so I have an advantage there.
Good. That's
So,
great.
do you only read one deck of cards, or do you have a few that you read from?
So typically I have one deck that I use for public readings.
Okay.
And then I probably own about 13 or 15
Okay.
different decks. And so sometimes I'll draw a card or two from one of those decks as kind of an add-on.
Okay.
But a lot of times those decks I use just kind of for my own,
Okay, so
hey,
whatever
I
you
need
feel
some
like,
guidance,
yeah.
let's just pull a couple of cards. Or
Okay.
sometimes I'll, post on Facebook for like 3 cards for people to choose one. and
Okay.
That kind of thing.
Yeah. Huh, interesting. So, so do you kind of mix the modalities though when someone's giving you, like when you're giving somebody a reading? I know that happens with me some of the time.
Yeah, so I try to kind of keep things to what the folks asked for.
Okay.
I mentioned I've done mediumship before, sort of by accident, where I'm doing a card reading and like, oh, grandma's here,
Yeah.
kind of thing. But I usually try to stick to what folks have asked me for, and then I just
Yeah.
make them aware of like there are other options if they feel called to them.
Yeah.
But I try to kind of stay in my lane
Yeah.
at those times.
Okay. I know some of us change it up, and that's fine too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so
For
just
sure.
each one of us is just a little bit different. So do you work psychic fairs though, and you offer different like do you have a table for the vending of the paintings and then a table for the reading?
So I am a one-woman show. So a lot of times when I'm doing a vendor event, I choose. So I'll either vend and sell my creations, or I will be offering readings at the show.
Okay.
It's a little difficult for me to do both
Yeah.
because I feel like if somebody's doing a reading, I feel like I'm cheating them out of a good
Right,
reading
you,
if I'm trying
you're
to
working
sell.
in 2 vibrations at that point in time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Something with stones and one grounded and
That's when you're supposed to take your husband with you so he can sell the bracelets.
Yes, my husband is very thankful that I do not do that.
What's he
But-
do?
He has a job that I can't discuss.
Sounds like it's pretty important to me. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, it's he has a job that's very logic based. So this has all been a very interesting ride.
yeah.
Oh yeah,
very
it's not logical at
interesting,
all.
Is he accepting of it? I guess is what I was leading up to.
Yeah, he is. And honestly, we've been together for a very long time at this point, and so I'm not the same person now that I was then. And
Right.
so I've evolved, and he's sort of getting there. So he's coming around. He's coming around.
Good.
Interesting.
Yeah. No, it's great. He's super supportive, which I'm very thankful for.
So we're going to send
That
him
makes
for
it
classes.
Yeah. Yes, for sure.
So when you're in the zone, though, does everyone like pretty much leave you alone though while you're in the zone, though, either making a painting or making a bracelet or something?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. My husband is pretty great about knowing if my home office door is closed, please only interrupt if like the house is on fire or you cut off an arm or something.
Yeah, something catastrophic. Yeah.
Right.
So when you're in the zone, you're definitely just in the zone, and that's it, though. It's like doors closed. yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. So I do try to make sure that I can give myself that time to just be there.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, you definitely want to give it the
Yeah, it's
full pleasure
important
of the person.
sometimes to put yourself in that place before you pick up the phone.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like you've been doing this forever.
It feels like it some days.
Yeah. But I mean, it's just all the different things that you do.